Hi, welcome once more to Waffle TV. Thank you for always being there to follow up our lessons and to learn one or two things in elementary mathematics. This is a platform where we facilitate the understanding of basic elementary mathematics. This is key to the success of young learners and to cause them to develop love in studying mathematics, science, and technology, as this is the future of the world. Last time we talked about algebra, and we promised you that this time around we are going to look at something new. And of course, as you can see on the board, we are starting with fractions. This is a little bit broad compared to the past lessons, and all the lessons we are going to have been arranged chronologically. It is important that you follow up from the very beginning so that as you get along, you will not get confused. This said, today we are going to be looking at the different types of fractions. But before we go into the details of what the different types of fractions, we'll first of all look at the different aspects, some key terms that we need to fully understand fractions. Before we go into all that, what are the objectives of our lesson today? The first is, by the end of the lesson, we should be able to define what a fraction is. Secondly, we should be able to identify the different types of fractions. Of course, that's the main thing we are doing today, types of fractions. The third objective is to be able to simplify fractions, that is, breaking fractions down to the lowest term. And lastly, we should be able to change mixed to improper fractions and vice versa. That means we should change from mixed to improper fraction and from improper fraction to a mixed fraction. This said, let us look at what a fraction is. Here it is stated that a fraction is part of a whole. So this is the underlining principle. The first thing we should understand as far as fractions is concerned is a fraction is part of a whole. This is a further explanation of what we mean by part of a whole. Look at these three diagrams. The first one, we have a circle which we consider it to be a whole, and it is divided into two parts. If you look at what is written here, this fraction written here, there is 2 and there is 1. The whole is divided into 2, which is the number below, and one portion is considered, or we say it is shaded. So the portion shaded or considered is the portion above. So the above is an indicator of the number of parts we consider, and the below is the number of equal parts the whole is divided into. Look at the second diagram. Is divided into 3 equal parts, and of course this is the meaning. This 3 below states the number of parts the whole is divided into, and 2 above shows the number of parts we have shaded. So 2 all over 3 means 2 parts considered out of 3 parts. The third circle is divided into 8 equal parts, and out of the 8 equal parts, 4 parts are shaded, or 4 parts have been considered. And these 4 out of 8 parts can equally be written as, can be broken down. How do we break this down? We look for a common prime factor that will be able to divide 4 and 8. 4 is an even number, 8 is an even number. So the first prime number, 2, can divide these numbers. So 2 will divide 4 2 times, and 2 will divide 8 4 times. So 4 all over 8 can equally be written as 2 all over 4. If you look at these two numbers, we can equally break these two numbers down using a prime number 2. 2 will divide itself 1 time, and 2 will divide 4 2 times. So 2 all over 4 can equally be written as 1 all over 2, and we read this as half. So there is something we have done here. It means 4 all over 8 is the same as 2 all over 4, and is the same as 1 all over 2. Now, this 4 all over 8 is a Vulger fraction because we can still simplify, same as 2 all over 4. And 1 all over 2 is this fraction in its lowest term, which means we have broken down to the barest minimum. Now let us look at the different parts of a fraction. A fraction consists of two parts. We have the number above and another one below. The number above is called the numerator and the number below is called the denominator. Now what is the numerator? The number of equal parts considered. As we've mentioned here, the numerator is the number of equal parts that are considered from a divided whole. So this is the whole and it's divided into two and one part is considered. So the numerator here is 1. Here the whole is divided into 3 and the number of parts considered is 2. And so our numerator is 2 and here the numerator is 4. Here is 2 and here is 1. Now we have the denominator. What is the denominator? The denominator is the number of equal parts the whole is divided. So when you have a whole and you break it into equal parts, those equal parts can be indicated or shown in a fraction by the denominator. Before we go into listing the different types of fractions, first, there is another type of fraction which, of course, we are going to look at, or another part, which will be the whole. Sometimes we have the numerator, the denominator, and a whole number. And of course, we are going to look at that as we identify the different types of fractions. Our very first type of fraction is a proper fraction. A proper fraction is simply a fraction that has a smaller numerator than the denominator. In proper fractions, the number above, which is the numerator, is smaller than the denominator. And examples of it we have here is 2/3. 2 is smaller than 3. 1/7. 1 smaller than 7, and 10 all over 100. All these are proper fractions. The second type of fraction here is the improper fraction. With an improper fraction, the numerator or the number above is bigger than the number below, than the denominator. So a fraction with a bigger numerator than the denominator is called an improper fraction. And here are some examples. 3 is bigger than 2, so this is an improper fraction. 9 all over 5 is an improper fraction, and 1000 on 100 is an improper fraction. The third type of fraction is a mixed fraction. We can also call it a mixed number. This is made up of a whole number and a proper fraction. For example, you have 1 and 1 all over 2, 5 and 6 all over 7. Now if you look at this, it is different from the two above. It has a bigger number, which is the whole number, and a proper fraction beside it. One thing we should take note of is that if you are writing a mixed fraction or a mixed number, let the whole number be bigger than the fraction, because you can, if you write it, for instance, if you write 1/2, if you write it as this, it may be read as 11 over 2 instead. So it is always advisable to write your whole number to be bigger than the fraction. The next type of fraction is a vulgar fraction. Now with a vulgar fraction, this is simply an improper or a proper fraction that can still be simplified. It means this is an unsimplified fraction. That is what we call a vulgar fraction. An example of such we have is 2 all over 4. If you look at this fraction, it can still be simplified. 60 all over 40 can still be simplified. This fraction and 105 all over 15 can still be simplified. These fractions are not in their lowest term. For that reason, we call them vulgar fractions. Now number 5, which of course is the last type of fraction we are going to look at today, is equivalent fractions. Equivalent fractions are fractions which, when simplified, the result are the same. So we have two fractions, and when you simplify these fractions to the lowest term, which means when you break them down to the lowest term, they are equal. They have the same result. Let's look at some examples. We have half, or 1 all over 2 is the same as 4 all over 8. How are they the same? If you look at this, it looks like they are far apart, they are different. But let's simplify 4 all over 8 and see if it gives us the same result as half. 2 can divide 4 2 times, and 2 can divide 8 4 times. 2 can divide itself 1 time, and 2 can divide 4 2 times. So here we'll still have 1 all over 2. So you realize that what we have here, 4 all over 8, is the same as 1 all over 2 this way. Let's look at this as well. 2/3 is the same as 6 all over 9. How is this possible? 3 can divide 6 and can divide 9. So 3 will divide 6 2 times, and 3 will divide 9 3 times. And you will find out that above you have 2 and below you have 3. So 2/3 is the same as 2/3. Half is the same as half. This is what we call equivalent fractions, because when you simplify these fractions, the result are the same. Still under equivalent fractions, you may have a question as such. Sometimes the number is missing and they're asking you to find the value of the missing number. In this case, they are telling us that 2/3 is the same as a fraction here. It means these two fractions are equivalent. How do you find the missing value? And the missing value here is x. So what do you do as far as this is concerned? The trick is as simple as this: cross multiply and cross divide. What do I mean by this? You simply take 2 multiplied by 30 and divide by 3. So this will be 2 times 30 divided by 3. 3 will divide itself 1 time, and 3 will divide 30 10 times. So x is equal to 2 times 10, which is 20. If you substitute 20 here and simplify, and your answer is 2/3, it means your answer is correct. Let's look at the second example. What is the value of m? In this case, 5 all over 7 is the same as, or is equal to, 25 all over m. What do? We simply cross multiply and cross divide, just as what we've done above. That is, we take 7 multiplied by 25 and divide by 5. 7 times 25 divided by 5 to have m. 5 will divide itself 1 time. 5 divides 25 5 times. 5 times 5, it means m will be equal to 7 times 5. M will be equal to 35. And like I said, if you substitute m with 35 and simplify, and your answer is 5 all over 7, it means you have done the right thing. With this, we've come to the end of our lesson today, and we believed you had a good time having this initiation into fractions. Next time, we'll be looking at addition of fractions and some other aspects which are very important as far as fractions are concerned. Endeavor to be there. Don't miss this lesson, and see you next time. Ciao.